here in Houston. I forgot their names, but they're already like working on that. Like, what's your opinion on that? Like, do you think like, okay, for a couple questions, do you think the Confederate flag stands for racism or heritage? And do you agree with? Yep, I'm putting you right on the spot.
No, it's just such a funny question.
Or do you agree with basically all these Confederate flags and bases being renamed and taken down? What's your thought?
I mean, okay, so with the Confederate thing, first of all, I never even seen a Confederate flag.
What?
I've
Ever?
never seen maybe ones like the ones on the stamps on back of cars here and there. Like the things. I've never seen a Confederate flag. Someone ever. I don't even know that was like a thing. I might have seen it like, I'll say I've seen it maybe no more than 10 times in public.
Okay.
Of I guess I can think of like two or three cars that have had them on the back of their trucks. So yeah, so I don't even know. So that question is like really new to me because I'm like, I've never like seen that before. Maybe I'm just too in the city. I mean,
You are.
Dallas, Grand Prairie, we wouldn't be putting up with that. Anyway, it's also a weird question. It is race. It's racism in the heritage thing. I don't know. It's weird because yeah, it is, but it's just awkward because like they lost, and you have to think of like everyone's perspective, you know. Oh, I saw the thing where NASCAR said they're going to take them down or something, which I feel like they say that every year. But some NASCAR driver like stepped down.
I ain't never heard of him. He got 0 wins.
What cares? No one cares about NASCAR, first of all. And honestly, they can keep their Confederate flags because no one is going to like care. We won't even know. Like we didn't even know like NASCAR had Confederate flags.
You will never catch me sitting there. All right, what's on TV? I'm watching NASCAR. You'll never catch me wanting to watch cars go in circles. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, NASCAR. I don't even know why it's just a thing.
What? Yes. What?
I've never had a friend that watches NASCAR. I don't even.
Like who turns on the television and is like, yeah, I'm gonna watch these cars go round and round. Yeah. And who declared that a sport? Who declared driving a sport?
It's strategy though. You gotta spin and like turn.
Right.
I don't know.
Every time I go outside on the roads, it's a strategy. I gotta figure out how to get to destination A to destination. It's so stupid.
But I'll get back to that question. Next question. The monument thing. I will say, I remember a couple years ago when this was like a big brouhaha too. Remember?
Yeah.
I will say, I never looked at these statues or these people or these monuments from a like negative point of view. I've always looked at them, and that's just like how I was raised, blah, blah, of just like, they did a lot for this area, this town. And so then I was like, well, what are the negative sides of these people? I mean, yeah, all of them had slaves. So then I was like, hey, what would a young black person or Hispanic or a minority think of all these? So what? I've never asked one. I've never asked people, like, it's just things you don't think about your first 18 years of life, you know? And so this is a weird question, but like, did you ever look at these monuments and these people like, they had slaves did you have a negative point of view
I
toward that?
think it. I think it goes both ways because I think as much as I despise the Confederate flag and the Confederacy, and they broke off from the United States, like I don't consider them like united with us because they decided to leave the Union.
Mm-hmm.
But like you know, if I'm gonna hold Robert E. Lee and all these other generals, I gotta hold George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and all of them just as accountable because
Mm-hmm.
they had slaves. They weren't as innocent.
Yep.
Like it
So,
goes both ways.
so I'm saying. I mean,
Especially Thomas Jefferson.
yeah.
Thomas was wild.
So like the Sam Houston statue, when you drove by it, did family ever say like bad? It's like I had a bad point of view of that
So
monument.
like
And I've
whenever
always thought of monuments as like, or just people in general, of just like their history, or the monuments of these people, their history and their impact overshadowed their
negativity.
negativeness, slavery. And then you have to think about slavery was normal for these people. It was
Yeah.
like, it was the thing, It's
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, yeah,
This
so it
man,
goes both ways of just like, huh?
this man on the podcast just said slavery is the way. It was the wave back then.
It was the wave in the 1800s for majority of people. So that's why it's like, it's weird to think about it because yes, we can say that from our 2020 point of view. Like, yeah, it's weird. You just have to think of everyone's perspectives, and we're all gonna have different perspectives, and so it's just like it's weird. It's weird. So when people bring up like the founding fathers did a lot for our country, and then you have those people that are like, well, they own slaves, and then it's just a never-ending argument, and it's just so. In conclusion, I don't know. So as and then you have the argument of uh I've seen this argument of like, oh, if we erase our history, the next generation won't know about it, blah blah blah.
No.
Which I mean, I don't know. I can't answer them for the next generation. I mean, I think these people are talking about people that are born and uh, going to be born in this upcoming decade.
Right.
Okay, you have the floor. I don't know. So
To answer your question,
all the questions, yeah.
when I drove by Sam Houston, like just going to Dallas or wherever, I just like, oh wow, this is a really tall white man. Like wow. And then I passed by the school or whatever, and then like as I got older, my parents were like, like he did a lot of things for Texas. Don't get me wrong. However, he owned slaves and he was a very big racist. And I was like, oh. And then part of me put the context in, like, I don't like this argument because I hate it. Like when I hear somebody say, like, oh, my parents were born in like the 40s or 50s or 60s, like they were born that way. Like you can come out of that way. You can be taught. You can learn out of those habits. That's a bad habit. You can learn out of a bad habit. But like you said, at the time, the norm was slavery, and like they didn't really know how to go against the grain because they would be shot. But also, it's just hard for me to put in my mind like if I had a slave right now here in 2020, I'd feel awful because like I'm dehumanizing these people. Like I'm like, what was going through their brain psychologically back then? Like it was just so like norm. So like it bothers me, but like the whole like taking it down. Like sure, take all these statues down, but we can still look it up. We can still like research and like all that stuff. So like while it may do like a bit of good and like bring like peace during these times, the whole issue is still not being addressed. Like people are just finding like different messages and subliminal messages to like get away from the problem.
Yeah, the whole peace thing. I think that's what will be. Yeah, but the whole problem is still going to be a thing. But
Yes.
but yeah, it's just like a understanding that maybe shouldn't be an understanding of and so yeah, maybe it's just baby steps into like having peace, like not to have racist icons monumented or like a reminder type of thing. So as this country grows more minority, man, it's interesting looking at the demographic stats
Yeah,
predicting thing.
Hispanics about to take over the majority.
It's interesting. Of like, I think I saw something in 2050, white people will be technically a minority.
Right.
And I was like, that's crazy, because it's like less than 50. And I think, yeah, it said 2050 we won't have a majority.
Right.
That's wild.
What?
And that's just what we're going to.
Yeah, like, why do you think like this election and this like census is so important?
Mhm.
Because it's going to determine a lot. But like,